We're back in Elko County this week, people, back in the northeast corner of Nevada with a new property really unlike anything we've listed before. This is a large, sprawling property in a very rural setting. Of course, what that means is you've got no neighbors, a lot of privacy, picturesque wide open space, mountainous backdrop, and big blue skies as far as the eye can see. Perfect for a home, perfect for a ranch, and perfect for the type of buyer, we'll say, makes their own way in life. That describes you. Stay tuned to learn more after the intro. All right, people, as noted, we're back up here in the northeast portion of Nevada in the county of Elko. Of course, Elko is a massive county, occupies a lot of land, so it's important to differentiate exactly what part of the county we're in. Today, with the subject property, we're over here in the easternmost portion of the county in a region called the Gamble District. Now, Gamble District is a bit sprawling, it is a bit large, it is a bit difficult to define. I will, however, try to ballpark it and tell you that it occupies most all this region just south of Nevada State Road 233, just north of Interstate 80, and just west of the Utah County line. Of course, there is a good portion of it that bleeds north of the 233 and just north of Interstate 80, but realistically, it's occupying pretty much all of the eastern part of the county. The subject property sits in close proximity to the small blink and you'll miss it town of Montello. Of course, in Montello, you've got a post office, a gas station, a convenience store, and little else. Fortunately, guys, about 30 minutes south of the property, you've got the town of West Wendover, Nevada, and the sister town of Wendover, Utah. These, of course, would be the more logical place for groceries, supplies, medical services, and general recreation. West Wendover, it should be noted, is home to a number of casinos, bars, and restaurants, and Wendover boasts a few notable sites, including the Bonneville Salt Flats, as well as the historic Wendover Airfield used by the U.S. military during World War II. Now, while the county of Elko is, of course, home to the town of Elko, it should be noted that due to its size, there's still a considerable distance between the subject property and the county seat, roughly about an hour and a half here along Interstate 80. And while this may be too far for casual daily trips, it should be noted that even greater resources, of course, will be found there. In fact, boasting a population of roughly about 20,000, Elko is home to a number of big box stores, Walmart and Home Depot, as well as fast food restaurants, bars, and casinos. In addition, the town offers major medical services in its Northeastern Nevada Regional Hospital, as well as air travel through its Elko Regional Airport. Of course, plenty of schools, parks, and churches can also be found in this quaint western community. With all that said, people, let's get back to talking about the Gamble District. So, the Gamble District is not the name of a formal subdivision, but rather is named for the original rancher who subdivided and sold off the seemingly thousands of acres that comprise this area of northeast Nevada. Now, because of this region, unlike a lot of the properties that we list, does not have the same structure that a formal subdivision might. There are no covenants, there are no restrictions, no HOA, no annual dues, and no time limits on building. Now, despite lacking the formal structure of a subdivision, keep in mind the property is still part of Elko County and is thus subject to county zoning ordinance. This property is zoned R1, or single-family residential, which means it's designed, quote, to provide and preserve low-density residential living areas reserved predominantly for the development of single-family dwellings. And that means that while this property may be ideal for a ranch, or a farm, or a 1- or 2-story house, shipping container home, or a mobile home with a permanent foundation, it could not be used for RV living or camping. Theoretically, that's per the zoning ordinance, okay? Mind you guys, you're going to see a lot of exceptions to the zoning ordinance. If you look at the home sites that are developed in regions like this, you'll find a lot of people who are using RVs. They do seem to be camping for long periods of time. I'm simply relaying to you what the zoning ordinance says. To learn more about the R1 zoning designation, if you just come up here on the website and click on this link right here, it'll bring up this PDF in a separate window where you can read more about that and just get a better sense of exactly how the county outlines what the land can and cannot be used for. Of course, as always, guys, if you have further questions about this, we recommend reaching out to Elko County Planning and Zoning directly. With all that said, people, the subject property is a 10-acre lot located up here just west, a little bit northwest of Nevada State Road 233. And if we zoom in on the map and go to satellite view, you can see, number one, not only how close this property sits to the highway, roughly about 1,800 feet west, but also you can see some of the developed home sites in the region. Now, of course, there's not that many up here. This is one, this is another. There's little ones over here and just south of the property. But for the most part, this is a pretty private, pretty secluded piece of land. Now, if we go to the photo gallery, what you're going to see, number one, is this is what the state road looks like out here. This, of course, is a paved road, so easily accessible, easily navigated in any vehicle type. Couple things I want to point out with this. Number one, on the map right here, if you look, it looks like there's kind of a road leading off here, branching off from the 233 that should provide easy access to the property. If, however, you look at the photo gallery, you're going to see that there is fencing running up and down here parallel the highway. So believe it or not, this is actually not the way that you would access the property. There will be fencing here that will kind of block off this residential area from the highway. In order to access the property, you're actually going to want to go about a mile south down here to another road. Of course, like a lot of the roads in this region, this one doesn't have a name, but if we zoom in on the map, what you're going to see is there's kind of a landmark out here. This little turnoff off the highway has this kind of fencing on these two sides. You're kind of looking for that. And if you go off onto this road right here, let me just pull back a second. Take it just a little bit, you'll find a kind of developed home site up here and then a road leading east. Bang a sharp right, guys, and head on that road and then drive about a mile north, and that's going to take you out in very close proximity to the subject property, which of course sits just right over here, just a little bit heading back this way east, a little bit east of this road. Of course, like a lot of properties in this region, the access points are a little difficult to figure out on your first try, and of course these are just sort of the ones that our photographer indicates to us, the kind of logical ways of accessing the property. When you get into regions like this, there can be many various points of ingress and egress that are developed over time by ranchers and people who live in the area who kind of carve their own paths out there. So that's something that you learn more with time owning the property. Guys, going back to the photo gallery, a couple things I want to point out to you here. First off, the fencing that exists out here on the highway is marked with a sign that I want to bring to your attention. Buried fibered optic cable in the vicinity. Of course, what you'll find in this area is that there's not really power lines running along the highway, power not really servicing this region. That being said, presumably there are plans for it in the future. Additionally, guys, so despite its rural setting, there's a surprising number of signs in the region advertising high-speed internet service available through HughesNet. Of course, they can bring a dish out to the property, get you hooked up with that. Additionally, there's a rather large cell tower within the area, which seems responsible for the supposedly excellent cell service that our photographer reported during his time at the subject property. So just two things to keep in mind with that. Additionally, here are some photos of the neighboring properties. This guy who actually is on the map up here, it's this property right here. This guy has actually done a pretty good job of concealing his home site with some, I guess, vegetation that he's managed to plant on the land. Whatever the case, there is a developed home site there, and some off in the distance that you can see in the next couple photos here in the gallery. Of course, the other thing that jumps out at you when you look at this region, number one, as I mentioned, there's no utilities out here servicing any of these home sites in this area. So, of course, this is more of a, quote, solar-friendly property. This is one that you're probably going to want to use solar panels for. Of course, you could call Nevada Power. You could try to investigate with them the cost, logistics involved in getting power extended out to the property. That said, we can assume it would probably be prohibitively expensive for most people. Additionally, guys, look at the photo gallery here. You get a sense of exactly how flat this land is, how sort of easy to build on, easy to park on it's going to be, easy to get a vehicle out there. And of course, you also get a sense of exactly how picturesque the surrounding region is, from the sort of wide open spaces to the beautiful blue sky that just extends off to the horizon to the sort of majestic mountains. Another quick thing to point out here, guys, is there are train tracks roughly about 3/5 of a mile from the subject property. If we go back to the Google Maps, you will see over here, this thing running right here is not a road. These are actually train tracks. Of course, just up here is a road on the other side of the train tracks, but these are train tracks, as noted, about 3/5 of a mile from the subject property. So if you want to go out there and kind of scout the property, get a sense of what kind of noise, if any, passing trains will create in this region, you might want to do that. It might be a good idea in advance of purchase. Also, guys, of course, as we go through the photos, one final thing to note here, guys, is that pronghorn antelope are, of course, very common in this region. They traverse all the land really throughout the area. Our photographer, we had him out at a number of properties in the area. He kept seeing these guys, so he took, of course, a couple photos. We've included them in a handful of the galleries on the website simply because they are so common out here. Whatever the case, these will be your new neighbors if you decide to purchase this 10-acre property. Anyway, guys, finally just wrapping up the photo gallery, we've got some drone shots here of the surrounding region just to give you a better sense of the property, the terrain, and the surroundings. With all that said, people, if you would like to purchase this property, you'll be glad to know we closed on it through WFG National Title Insurance Company, which not only means that we receive title insurance with the property, but that we will also be conveying it to you with clear and marketable title. To initiate this process, just come up here to the top of the page and click the Buy Now button, which will take you to this secure checkout. where we ask for a non-refundable, people, let me say it again, non-refundable $500 earnest money deposit. Now, to be clear, guys, this is not a property that has any financing offered. This is not a property where we're doing monthly payments. This is a property where we expect you to have the entire cash price. So if you do not have the entire cash price, you should not initiate this transaction. For those of you who do, however, here's the way it works. Come down here, give us the name for the deed, name for the contract, your mailing address. Then at the bottom of the page, agree to the terms of service, click next, and on the very next page, you can enter credit or debit card information to place the $500 deposit. Now, to be clear, guys, this is an expensive property. Really, anything north of $10,000, we encourage our buyers to close through a title company on. Of course, you don't have to do that. Nobody's got a gun to your head. It's up to you. But when you're spending this kind of money, we recommend getting title insurance. And of course, one of the major benefits here for you, the buyer, is that with a title company, you've got a third-party intermediary who is not only handling the conveyance of the property, but also the disbursement of funds, meaning we cannot touch your money until such a time as the property has been deeded into your name. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how that whole process works, you'll be glad to know that on the listing page, we've got this helpful notes about purchasing, which goes into a little more detail here. But more helpfully, it links you to some pages on the website, which will go into even greater detail about this process. The first page is called How It Works Buying From Us. And if you go here, you can see exactly how this process plays out. Step 1, you place that deposit. Step 2, we're going to draft a contract. You sign it, we sign it. And step 3, the title company will do the rest, albeit slowly and over the period of about a month. And in case you're at all skeptical about placing money before seeing the contract you'll be asked to sign, you'll be glad to know we have a copy of our standard sale purchase agreement right here. You can click that and read through a generic version of what that contract looks like. It's a pretty easy contract, one page for signatures. If you got a lawyer in the family, have them give it a look-see, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Additionally, guys, if you haven't been through the title escrow process before, you're probably going to have a lot of questions about it. You'll be glad to know we have a page on our website entitled Title Escrow Frequently Asked Questions page. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this page where pretty much every conceivable question we have ever gotten from a buyer or will ever get from a buyer is answered here. Questions about benefits, questions about potential drawbacks, timeline, schedule, logistics, so on and so forth. So we encourage you, give that a read. In conclusion, guys, glad to finally be listing property like this on the website. We've been trying for some time to get sprawling acreage like this, particularly in areas with fewer restrictions than we normally find in a lot of the more formal subdivisions that we list in. Of course, as noted earlier, this property's got zoning, but it's in Elko County, which means you're in the Wild West, which means you're going to be able to do a lot of things that you can't do elsewhere. And of course, in doing that, you've got these great sort of sprawling landscapes off in the distance here. You've got the beautiful mountains, the breathtaking scenery, these gorgeous blue skies, and these magnificent sunsets. So I really like these, really glad to have them up on the website. Hope you agree, and thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.